Well, in this video, we're back in the garage working on the 1959 Chevy El Camino, and we're gonna fix what we broke in the last video on its maiden voyage. Let's go. That's right, we got a few issues we're gonna be working out today in this video. We gotta fix what we broke on the maiden voyage. But I want to start off by saying thank you to the Hooligans Car Club for throwing such a great show. The 4th annual shakedown was a blast. We all had a great time, so thank you. And for all you guys that made it out to the show, I was glad to see you out there. You know, I ran into a bunch of old friends, and I made a few new ones as well. So thanks for being out there, and totally looking forward to next year. But if you'd watched that video, you know, at the end, I'd mentioned that we barely made it home. And so I do have some of that video footage that I should probably share with you before I start explaining what we got to deal with. I mean, you already know about the first two issues that we dealt with, the carrier bearing bolts falling out and then the shift rod coming loose. While driving it, it developed another issue, and it didn't really show itself until I got to the show. But once driving home, it was obvious that we have an issue that we need to deal with. All right, it made it down the driveway okay. We're about to pull out onto the main road. I got water coming out the exhaust. Hope that's not nothing serious. Well, she did pretty good, guys. You know, the first drive going to Finn's the other day, we did have to repair the drive line. And then last night I had to fix those shift rods. Nothing too major, but then on the way here today, I was noticing some water coming out my passenger side tailpipe, and then when I showed up, Oliver said I was getting smoke and steam out of that side. And we kind of started looking, and I realized I had all kinds of blow-by oil spraying out my breather up on the roof. And then we pulled it off and looked, and we've got water in my oil. Nothing too major. When I pull the dipstick, there's nothing on the dipstick, and when I open the radiator, there's nothing there, but definitely some oil or water in the oil up in these breathers up in the top end. So I think we blew a head gasket. Hopefully it's not a cracked head, but I'm gonna have to limp it home, and then we'll have to dig into this deeper. But if that's the worst of it, then we should be good. All right, everything's rolling out, so we're gonna get loaded up and fire up and head home. Let's go. Guys, I'm overheating. It didn't take long, maybe 5 minutes out of the cruise, and it started overheating. I either have a blown head gasket or a cracked head. Now I'm gonna let it cool down, and I'm stopped here at O'Reilly's. I'll grab some coolant to put in there. I gotta try to limp this thing home. Yeah, the cooling system is all new and working fine, but you know, a cracked head or a blown head gasket is gonna cause this thing to overheat, which it's doing now. So I'll let it cool down, and I'll try to top off the coolant, and we're trying to nurse this thing home. All right, it took 2 full gallons of antifreeze to bring this full. 2 more gallons of antifreeze. We're gonna start it up and see how she does. get moving. All right, let's get this show on the road. Yeah, I can't believe we were that low on coolant. I should have topped it off this morning, but I didn't think, I don't have a leak. I just have a possible blown head gasket. Well, we did make it home, and now we're back here in the garage, and we're going to fix the issue. Now, in hindsight, it seems pretty obvious why we blew a head gasket. That's on me. Now, if you remember, in the video where we took the motor apart, we discovered that somebody had obviously been in there and reassembled it and put new gaskets and then resealed it and put it back together, but it had never ran. It looks like maybe somebody put in a new cam, or at least maybe a new timing chain, because it seems like it has a brand new timing chain in there. And it was reassembled. You know, it's a 350 block, and then we discovered it has 305 heads, but it had never ran. It had all new, brand new gaskets and seals in it, and I'd gotten away with this once before. I was thinking, new head gaskets, I'll just reuse those. Well, now, like I said, in hindsight, it seems pretty obvious. That thing had been torqued down for many years, compressing that head gasket. No wonder it failed. I don't know what. Because I got away with it once before, I thought maybe I'd save a few bucks and do it again. Big mistake. I should have just put the new head gaskets in it that I already had and not reuse those. Even though they looked new, they were obviously compromised, and now I'm paying the price. So what I'm going to do is disassemble this motor and put brand new head gaskets in it. And I got new intake manifold gaskets as well. Well, let me pop the hood and start showing you what we're dealing with here. All right, well, here we go. You know, in the video, I'd showed you that when I looked in the oil fill tube, it was full of white foam, and up under here, I cleaned it out a bit, but this was full of foamy oil. You know, water had been up in the top end of this. Same with this breather. You know, I since cleaned it out, but I'm sure that inside the valve covers and the top end of this is just all white and foamy. But when I pulled the dipstick and looked at this, the oil was perfectly new still. There was no foam on this. A little bit of moisture at the top end of the dipstick, but I don't think any water was getting down into the crankcase. I think the failed head gasket was allowing the water to go into the top end, mostly as vapor. We saw that it was coming out the tailpipe on the passenger side, but I think most of that water was just being ran through the top end and through the cylinders and out the combustion chamber and out the exhaust. So hopefully it's not too big of a mess, but we're gonna have to disassemble all of this and get these heads off here, put new head gaskets in it, reassemble it. I've got new manifold gaskets, new intake manifold gaskets. So I guess I'm just going to get started here. I got to drain out the coolant and disconnect the fuel line and get that plugged off, and I'll just start disassembling this thing, and we're going to look and see how big of a mess we've got to deal with. You know, this isn't the first time that we've cleaned mucky, oily water out of this thing. As you remember, this thing was full of water when we started. So we ain't any worse off than we were when we started, that's for sure. But let's fix our mistake and get this all cleaned up. Then we can get it reassembled, get it running, hopefully fix the issue, and get this thing on the road. We're ready to drive this. I'm going to turn this into my daily driver for the rest of the summer. We just need to get those head gaskets replaced. Let's go. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and pull this drain plug out. It's singing for us. Alright, you noticed in that video when this thing overheated, it was chooching the steam out the radiator overflow port like a steam whistle. Kind of entertaining. And it's still perfectly green. There's no oil in my coolant, just coolant in my oil. Now, show you the valve covers. You can see some moisture up in there, some watery oil up in the top end. Yeah, it's a little funky. And we're gonna have to tear those, well, we'll get the intake off next and the exhaust manifolds, and then we'll get those heads off and really take a look and see what's going on. Okay, once again, you know, there's just a minute amount of water evidence right there. It's mostly just oil, just a very little amount right there that just came down when I popped that intake manifold off. But let's get these exhaust manifolds off and pull those heads. This was much easier when it was on an engine stand. Oh, not in my exhaust pipe. Oh, jeez. That was going right in my manifold, filling my exhaust. Alright, let's get this head off over here. Obviously, it's getting worse as deeper we go. So obviously, at the minimum, it's going to need head gaskets and a complete oil change, new oil filter and stuff. Hopefully that's all it was, is those head gaskets. Coolant and antifreeze everywhere. And about what I expected. You know, they don't look too bad, but there's a little bit of coolant in those back cylinders. And obviously, I drained it out. I drained the radiator and the coolant, but there's still so much of it coming out of the block. Now let's get this head off. Yeah, this garbage, that's why. Get out of here. Well, we got antifreeze and coolant coming out just about everywhere. I guess we'll have to look at those heads closer, make sure they're okay, but I think we're just gonna drain the oil now and clean up these mating surfaces so then we could put new head gaskets in it and reassemble this. I'll flip these over and kind of look at them, but I'm pretty sure it was those head gaskets. Alright, well, I got this all cleaned up for the most part, the mating surface, and could probably wipe this all down one more time. But everything looks okay. Like I was saying, I think it's just the head gasket. The heads over here, I got those kind of cleaned up and wiped down. Scraped the mating surface, cleaned all that gasket material off. Inspected them. I don't see any cracks or anything. But we definitely had an oily mess. I still got to get this all cleaned up. Even the intake manifold got oily, taking it all apart here. So, well, like usual, nothing beats super clean. We're going to use that to clean this all up. And even since the motor was super clean when we started. We're going to give that another wipe down before we start reassembling it. You know, we got some new head gaskets here, as well as some new intake manifold gaskets, some P.O.Box ones. You can see how I keep everything in order. Just punch some holes in a box here, keeps it all in order. So get this all cleaned up and throw some new gaskets in here and get this reassembled. All right, it's been a few days, but we're back out here, and I think today we're gonna get this thing all reassembled. You know, the hardest part of this by far has been getting everything cleaned up. Scraping up and cleaning all those mating surfaces, mopping up all that antifreeze, cleaning up the oily mess, you know, all my greasy handprints on everything. You know, everything was new or freshly painted when we started taking this apart, and I gunked up everything, so getting it all cleaned up and ready to reassemble is taking the longest. But I finally think I got it all ready. Let me show you a few things though really quick. You know, here we are, and got everything cleaned up. This was all freshly painted, and then I got antifreeze and oil and my gunky hands on everything. So getting everything cleaned up and cleaning up these mating surfaces. And well, this cylinder, you can see the difference in color. Now I've already rotated this around to top dead center on number 1, so you can't see the cylinder wall anymore. But this obviously was the cylinder that was leaking the antifreeze into it and running it through, because it was all white, and then the cylinder walls had just the hint of surface rust sitting here. And same with the head, you could see that was the cylinder. So obviously that was the one that was running all the water through it, and obviously coming out the passenger side like we saw. But I got it all ready to reassemble, so I'm gonna set you up on the tripod and we're gonna do a little time lapse. Let's go. Alright, I think I got it all reassembled and ready to fire. I've already gone through and even did an oil change and topped off the coolant. And I got all the connections made and everything torqued down. Once we get it fired up, I'm going to have to do the timing again and let it warm up, burp the cooling system, make sure all the fluids are topped off, and we're going to see if we fixed the issue. So I'll set you up on the camera and fire this thing up. You know, quick look at everything. Got everything reconnected. You know, there's no fuel in the fuel line from the pump up here, but I'm pretty sure there's still some in the float bowls. And I got everything, the alternator back on here, the belt, all the hoses, coolant's mostly full, but I've got more antifreeze to add to this as it needs. I'll have to address the timing. I did even put some new gauges in here. That was something that helped contribute to it overheating, was that the temperature gauge had failed on me. So we got new gauges there that help with that, and well, let's fire up. pressure. Water temp's just starting to come up. Everything's looking good. We did have a slight fuel leak, but I tightened that up. And that noise I heard was more in this area, and it's actually getting better. It's not as bad. I think that might have been that dry cylinder, but it's smoothing out. But we had 40 some pounds. It's dropped down to about 30. Water temp's just coming up. Now, I am noticing a little more smoke or steam out of this side. You know, we won't know for sure if that was the issue, the head gasket. It could have been a bad head, and we might have the same issue. Worst case scenario. But there's no water coming out of there. Well, if you remember right, we did lose a bunch of antifreeze into that exhaust manifold when we were taking the heads off. So it's probably burning some of that water out of the exhaust pipe. Hopefully. Otherwise, we're gonna have the same issue. Yeah, she quieted up too. She smoothed out and was all quiet. Where she was making that noise before. Yeah, we're still getting water out of this side. Hopefully that is just that antifreeze and coolant that we lost into the manifold when we took the head off. Well, now that we're getting some temperature, the oil pressure is dropping too. That's no good. I'm gonna let her run a bit more. Go through a full heat cycle. We're gonna see a little bit of vapor coming out of here. I don't know if that's steam. Well guys, I don't know. I'm hoping that we don't have the same issue, that it was just a head gasket and we solved the problem, and that what we're seeing coming out the tailpipe is just all the antifreeze and water that dumped into the manifold when I was pulling the head. But it's still coming out. It's been about 5-10 minutes, and you can almost see a little bit of vapor coming out of the oil fill tube where we were getting blow by before. So I'm still hoping that we solve the issue and we don't have the same problem. pressure's dropped down to about 20. It was above 40. Now that it's at full temp, it's down to 20. All right, I think we did it. I don't know if I caught the end of that all on the camera, but it pretty much quieted up. The motor had a little bit of a tick at first. I think it was that dry cylinder that had been washed out with the coolant, but that quieted down. But the oil pressure started at like 40 something, but once we reached full temp, it dropped down to about 20. It's kind of normal for a Chevy, so I think we're okay there. But the temp did rise up to 180 and held at 180, didn't get any hotter, didn't overheat. The water that was coming out the exhaust pipe, remember when I was pulling the head bolts, some of that coolant went right into my exhaust manifold. So I was hoping that's just what we're seeing coming out the exhaust pipe. It did kind of stop there towards the end. But the thing that worries me the most is, which I don't think I got on camera, is it really started putting out some white smoke at the end. White smoke usually means burning coolant. I'm hoping that we don't have a more serious issue than just the head gaskets, which I was thinking we had. But what I did was go ahead and let it cool completely down now, and I've checked all the oil and the coolant and everything's still at full level. There's no water in my oil, no oil in my water at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and restart it and bring it up to temp again, just verifying that everything's good, and we're going to take it on a test drive. The one sure way to really find out if we fixed it or not. So let's go. She's sounding pretty good. A little high idle from the choke. Drop her down. Pretty quiet now. All that engine noise went away. Yeah, no more water, but we're getting some white smoke. Not so much yet, but once it reaches full temp, we'll see if that's still happening. Go ahead and let her warm up, and then we're gonna go for a little drive. All right, here we go. And I'm really low on gas again. I threw the gas can with gas in the back if we need it, but I'm gonna try to get to the gas station and get some gas and then get back home and see if everything's good to go. So far, so good. Yeah, we're getting some white smoke out there. Temp gate's not rising above 150, which is strange. It's not even reaching full temp. I don't know, we'll just get to the gas station, get gas, and give it a once over, and then drive it back home. And it should tell us if we've got any more issues at that point. lots of white smoke out the tailpipe. And my oil pressure dropped way low when I was sitting there idling. Yeah, I put it neutral. I'm just coasting, and you can see at idle, my oil pressure dropped. And look, we're not even coming up to 180 on the temp. Can you guys see the smoke? Watch. I don't know why I showed it to you on the bridge, but I was coming to a stop, and on acceleration I could see all that smoke coming out there, white smoke. Yeah, I have a bad feeling those 305 heads are crap. I don't think they're any good. They must have a crack in them that I couldn't see. We'll find out for sure when we get home and we check everything, but I think we're still leaking coolant into our combustion chambers. Back. Let's go check it over. I'm gonna leave it running and just kind of go check everything out really quick. All right, look at this, guys. Ugh. And it's like running rich, it's burning my eyes. That's what I'm talking about. Look at all that. Oh man, I can't tell if that's coolant or not. Oh my goodness. So first thing that's weird is I've got this smoking and steaming down here, and it just looks like it's the frame is hot. Oh no. I have a hole in the exhaust pipe right there, and it's steaming up there. got a knock in the motor again. And then, oh, yeah, we got trace of water in there. Yeah, we're getting oil in our coolant again. I'm shutting this off. Oh my goodness. And we're definitely burning coolant still. Oh man. Well, it's got to be those heads then. Those crappy 305 heads. This whole motor has been pissing me off this whole time. Oh my goodness. All right, I gotta let this garage clear out so I can breathe, and we'll come back and address this.
2 hours later.
Are you kidding me? This motor has fought me the whole way. I'm so tempted just to get another motor to put in here. I'm so frustrated. I mean, is there any chance that that's just all from like residual moisture in the motor from last time? Or is it really still burning coolant? Here, let me show you a few things. Well, first of all, the coolant, it's still right towards the top. And nice and green. There's no oil in there. It never got hot or overheated. When I checked the oil, I don't know if that's gonna focus, but we're still full in oil. But there is a slight amount of evidence of, if I can get this to focus, moisture right there at the top of the stick. So still pretty good there, just a little hint of maybe moisture in there. But when you check the top breather, again, to try to get this to focus, you could see vapor droplets, water droplets, and there's some of that foamy, oily, foamy mess in there starting to build up. Here's the oil breather. Yep, there we go. It's starting to get the white foamy mess in there. So we got to be burning coolant through maybe the cylinder still, the same one. Maybe that's where the crack in the head is, because now we're getting that valve train noise again over here. Probably because coolant's washing that cylinder out, running it through the exhaust pipe. That's why we're burning coolant out the exhaust, and it's burning my eyes because we're probably getting raw fuel going right through that cylinder. This motor, oh man. I'm tempted just to get rid of it, but we've already got it in here with all the new clutch and everything on it. It seems to be just the top end. Those 305 heads, maybe those got to go. And, well, I was thinking it'd be nice just to swap the heads with something else around here. And then I realized I do have an option here. So the rat rod has got this whole 400 small block in it that I used to run in the Nova. Now this thing developed a horrible knock, so I pulled it out of the Nova, and the number one cylinder was just all scored up. And when we pulled the oil pan, the pickup tube was sitting in the bottom of it. So we pretty much ran this thing dry until the number one cylinder started knocking, but it still fires up and runs. But maybe I just pull the 400 heads off this thing and put them on the 350. From all my research, that's completely compatible. If anything, it'd be an upgrade. 400 small blocks got a bigger valve, I believe, than the 305. So maybe we just throw those old 400 small block heads on here and see what that does. I mean, obviously first, when I decide that the head's got to come back off, then we could figure out exactly. They're probably cracked. Nothing I could see, but I mean, that's why you take them into a shop and have them magnafluxed. you can't always see them, I guess, but I just got to make a decision on what to do now. So I guess I'm reaching out to you guys. What should I do at this point? You know, all the work that we put into that motor already, do I just slap a set of 400 small block heads on there and see if that gets us going and gets us through this issue? Or do I pull this whole motor out and just scrap it and start over with something else, which we don't have? And like I said, we're at the end of our budget here, so we're trying to make it work with what we've got. But I like to hear your guys' feedback and what do you think about this whole mess? One way or another, we'll get it worked out. But I want to give a huge shout out to all my members. Thank you guys. It's your monthly membership that's helping us do what we do here. And, well, with your guys' help, we're getting these old classics back on the road, one part at a time, and another part, and another part, and another part. But we're doing it, and it's just a lot of work. So I really appreciate you guys, and until next time, peace.